My father only started paying attention to me after my sister needed a kidney transplant, and now he's disappointed that I'm not just blindly donating it to her. It's always been Ileana. My sister Ileana has been the sun in my dad's sky since the day she was born. I'm not saying this to be dramatic, it's just the plain truth. Growing up, everything revolved around her. Her grades were always praised louder, her achievements celebrated bigger, even her mistakes were somehow softer, more forgivable. I'm Abel, by the way, 25 years old, and for most of my life I've just been there in the background, like the moon, reflecting someone else's light. It wasn't malicious, not really. My dad, Kai, he's a good man in his own way. He just connected with Ileana on a different level. They shared interests, a similar temperament, a kind of spark I just never seemed to ignite in him. I tried, of course. As a kid, I'd bring home good report cards, hoping for that same burst of pride he'd give Ileana for even a slightly above average test score. I'd try to talk to him about my hobbies, video games, coding, things that genuinely excited me, but his eyes would glaze over. He'd nod, say that's nice, Abel, and then steer the conversation back to Ileana's ballet recital or her latest art project. Ileana, to her credit, wasn't awful about it. She knew, I think, on some level. She'd sometimes try to include me to share the spotlight, but it always felt forced, like she was doing it out of pity, not genuine interest. And pity, honestly, is worse than indifference, so I learned to just accept it. Dad and Ileana were a team, and I was the other son, the one who got decent grades, stayed out of trouble, and didn't require much attention. The reliable one maybe, but definitely not the favorite. This dynamic has been our family's background music for as long as I can remember. It's just always been there, a constant hum in the background of our lives. Until now. Now everything's changed, and in the most twisted, messed up way possible. Ileana's sick, really sick. She's been diagnosed with some kind of rare kidney disease. It came on fast, apparently. One minute she was fine, the next she was in the hospital, hooked up to machines, doctors talking in hushed tones. It's terrifying seeing her like that. Ileana, who was always so vibrant, so full of life, now pale and weak in a hospital bed. The doctors say she needs a kidney transplant. And that's where things get complicated and frankly disgusting. Of course the family is getting tested. Mom, Dad, me, we all want to help, to do anything we can to save Ileana, but the waiting is agonizing. The tests are slow, the compatibility matching is complex, and every day feels like an eternity. And in the middle of all this anxiety, all this fear for my sister, something unbelievably strange started happening. My dad started paying attention to me, really paying attention. Not the polite, distant nods of the past, but actual, focused attention. It started subtly. He'd ask me how I was doing, not just a cursory "how are you," but a genuine, concerned question. He'd linger when he talked to me, actually listen to my answers. He even started initiating conversations, asking about my work, my life, things he'd never shown the slightest interest in before. At first, I was just confused. Maybe he was stressed about Ileana, maybe he was just reaching out. But then it escalated. He started praising me, complimenting me on things that were frankly pretty mundane. Abel, you're so responsible, always thinking ahead. Abel, you're so strong, you always handle things so calmly. Things he'd never said to me in my entire life. Things he usually reserved for Ileana. And then it hit me. It was like a punch to the gut. He wasn't suddenly interested in me because he valued me, because he suddenly saw me for who I was. He was interested in me because I might be useful, because I might be a kidney match for Ileana. It's sickening, isn't it? To think that after all these years of feeling invisible, the only way I could finally get my father's attention, his affection, was by potentially having a vital organ he needed for his precious daughter. I haven't said anything to him yet. I'm still processing it, honestly. Part of me wants to scream, to lash out, to tell him exactly what I think of his sudden interest. Part of me just wants to shut down, to retreat back into the background where I've always been. But another, smaller, weaker part of me, it wonders, what if I am a match? What if I can save Ileana's life? Would that finally make me worthy in his eyes? Would that finally make me his favorite son? It's a horrible thought, I know. To even consider that, to think that saving my sister's life might be some kind of twisted competition for my father's love. But that's the messed up reality of it, isn't it? That's what years of being second best does to you. It warps your perspective, poisons your thoughts. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to feel. I'm scared for Ileana, angry at my dad, and disgusted with myself for even entertaining these thoughts. I just needed to get this out to see if anyone else out there understands this. Bizarre, awful situation. Is it wrong of me to feel this way? Am I a terrible person for even thinking about my own needs, my own feelings when my sister's life is on the line? I honestly don't know anymore. Update 1, the test results are back. Mom's not a match. Dad's not a match. I'm a kidney match for Ileana. The doctor called me yesterday afternoon. I was at work staring at lines of code that suddenly seemed meaningless when my phone buzzed. I saw the hospital number and my stomach dropped. I knew it was about the results. I stepped outside, took a deep breath, and answered. The doctor's voice was calm, professional, but I could hear a hint of something else. Relief, maybe hope. "Mr. Abel," she said, "we have your results. You are a compatible donor for your sister, Ileana." My head went blank. I think I just stood there, phone pressed to my ear, staring at the brick wall of the building next door. "Mr. Abel, are you still there?" "Yes," I managed to croak out. "I'm here." She went on to explain the next steps, the further tests, the evaluations, the surgery itself. It was all a blur, a rush of medical jargon and logistical details that I barely registered. All I could focus on was those words, "You are a compatible donor." I hung up, walked back inside, and went straight to the bathroom. I splashed cold water on my face, trying to ground myself to make sense of what I'd just heard. I was a match. I could save Ileana. And then, of course, my mind went straight to my dad. How would he react? Would this finally be it? Would this be the moment when I finally became enough? I went home that evening, dreading the conversation. I knew I had to tell my parents, but I wasn't sure how. I walked into the house, and the atmosphere was thick with tension. Mom was in the kitchen, her face pale and drawn. Dad was in the living room, pacing back and forth, phone pressed to his ear. He hung up as soon as he saw me. "Abel," he said, his voice tight, "have you heard anything?" I nodded slowly. "I got a call from the doctor." He stopped pacing, his eyes fixed on me. And I took another deep breath. "I'm a match, Dad, I'm compatible." The reaction was not what I expected. He didn't jump up and hug me, didn't burst into tears of relief. He just stared at me, his expression unreadable. Then slowly a smile spread across his face, but it wasn't a warm, loving smile, it was almost triumphant. That's incredible, Abel," he said, his voice softer now, almost reverent. "That's just incredible." He walked over to me, put a hand on my shoulder. It was a rare gesture, physical affection from my dad, but it felt cold, calculated, like he was patting a prize-winning racehorse, not embracing his son. "You're going to do this, right, Abel?" he asked, his eyes searching mine. "You're going to donate your kidney to Ileana." The question, it was an expectation. A demand even, and in that moment something inside me snapped. All the years of being second best, all the subtle slights, all the unspoken comparisons, it all came crashing down. "Why?" I asked, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. "Why are you suddenly so interested in me, Dad? Is it because I can give Ileana a kidney? Is that the only reason?" His smile faltered, his hand tightened on my shoulder. "Abel, what are you talking about? Of course not. We're just relieved. This is amazing news." "No, Dad," I said, shaking my head. "Don't lie to me. Don't pretend like you suddenly care about me now just because I might be useful to you. You've never cared about me before. Why start now?" His face flushed, his eyes narrowed. "That's not true, Abel. I've always cared about you. We both have." "Really?" I challenged him, stepping back away from his touch. "Then why does it feel like I've been invisible my whole life? Why does it feel like Ileana is the only one who matters in this family?" He sputtered, defensive now. "That's ridiculous, Abel. You're being dramatic. Ileana is sick. She needs our support. This isn't about favoritism, isn't it?" I asked, my voice rising. "Isn't it always about Ileana, Ileana's grades, Ileana's talents, Ileana's problems? What about me, Dad? Have you ever actually seen me? Have you ever actually cared about what I want, what I feel?" He stared at me, his face a mask of anger and hurt. "How can you say that, Abel, after everything we've done for you?" "What have you done for me, Dad?" I asked, my voice trembling now, tears welling in my eyes. "Besides compare me to Ileana my whole life, besides make me feel like I'm never good enough." He didn't answer. He couldn't, because he knew deep down that it was true. He knew that he had always favored Ileana, that he had never truly seen me, never truly valued me for who I was. "I'm going to bed," I said, turning away, unable to look at him any longer. "I need to think." I walked to my room, shut the door, and collapsed onto my bed. The weight of it all, the fear, the anger, the years of resentment, it was crushing me. I was a match. I could save Ileana, but at what cost and for what reward? A fleeting moment of my father's approval. A lifetime of being known as the son who gave his kidney to Ileana. I don't know what to do. I don't know if I can go through with this. Not for him, not for a father who only sees me as a means to an end. But Ileana is my sister, and she needs me, even if my father doesn't. Update 2 asterisk, I'm going through with it. I'm donating my kidney to Ileana. The surgery is scheduled for next month. It wasn't an easy decision. The last few weeks have been a whirlwind of emotions, of tests, of conversations, and a lot of sleepless nights. After my outburst at my dad, things were tense, to say the least. He tried to talk to me a few times, to apologize, to explain, but I just shut him down. I wasn't ready to hear it, not yet. Mom, bless her heart, tried to mediate. She's always been the peacemaker in our family, the glue that holds us together. She talked to me, listened to my anger, my hurt, my resentment. She didn't try to excuse Dad's behavior, didn't try to minimize my feelings. She just listened. And that in itself was a kind of comfort. She also talked to Dad, I know she did. I could hear them arguing sometimes, their voices muffled behind closed doors. I don't know what she said to him, but something shifted. He stopped trying to talk to me, stopped with the forced praise and the hollow compliments. He just gave me space, which ironically was exactly what I needed. The medical evaluations were intense. More tests than I can count, consultations with doctors, surgeons, therapists. They wanted to make sure I was physically and mentally prepared for the surgery, for the recovery, for the long-term implications of living with only one kidney. Honestly, there were moments when I almost backed out. The fear was overwhelming. The thought of surgery, of pain, of potential complications, it was terrifying. And then there was the resentment, the anger at my dad, the feeling that I was being used, manipulated. It all weighed so heavily on me. But then I'd go visit Ileana in the hospital. I'd see her lying there, pale and weak, her eyes dull with exhaustion, and something would shift inside me. It wasn't about Dad anymore. It wasn't about being the favorite son or proving my worth or any of that petty, selfish crap. It was about Ileana, my sister, the girl who, despite everything, had always been there for me in her own way. I remembered all the times she had stood up for me against bullies in school, all the late-night talks we'd had about our dreams and fears, all the silly inside jokes we shared that no one else understood. Ileana wasn't perfect, none of us are, but she was my sister, and I loved her. And in the end, that's what it came down to. Love. Not the conditional, approval-seeking love I craved from my father, but the unconditional, selfless love I felt for my sister. The kind of love that makes you want to do anything, sacrifice anything to see the person you care about safe and healthy and happy. So I made the decision. I told the doctors I was ready. I signed the consent forms. I told Mom and Dad, and even though Dad didn't say much, I saw something in his eyes. Not triumph, not calculation, but gratitude, and maybe, just maybe, a flicker of something else. Respect, pride. I couldn't be sure, and honestly, I didn't care anymore. I told Ileana too. I went to see her in the hospital, sat by her bedside, and told her everything. About the tests, about the surgery, about my decision to donate. She listened quietly, her eyes fixed on mine, her hand gripping mine tightly. When I finished, she didn't say anything for a long moment. Then tears welled up in her eyes and she started to cry. Not tears of fear or pain, but tears of relief and gratitude. "Thank you, Abel," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "Thank you, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," I said, squeezing her hand. "Just get better, Ileana, that's all I want." And in that moment, looking at her, seeing the genuine love and appreciation in her eyes, I knew I had made the right decision. Not for my father, not for some twisted sense of validation, but for Ileana, for my sister, because that's what family does, isn't it? We take care of each other. Even when it's hard, even when it hurts, even when it means giving up a part of ourselves. The surgery is still weeks away. There are more tests to come, more preparations to be made, but I'm ready. I'm scared, yes, but I'm also at peace. I'm not doing this to become my father's favorite son. I'm doing this because Ileana is my sister and I love her, and that in the end is all that truly matters. Maybe, just maybe, that's a lesson my father will finally learn too. But even if he doesn't, it's okay. I know who I am, and I know what I'm doing is right for Ileana, for myself, and that's enough.
My sister started a smear campaign accusing me of drug use to gain custody of my children during my rocky marriage. And now, she's sending me drugs and threatening to call Child Protective Services. My sister Natalia has always been competitive, but lately it's crossed a line into something else entirely. We've never been super close, a typical sibling dynamic, I guess. But since my marriage started hitting a rough patch, she's become almost predatory, circling like a shark. My husband Ellis and I have been having problems for a while now. It's nothing dramatic, just the slow erosion of communication and connection that happens sometimes. We're in therapy, trying to work through it, but it's definitely stressful. I confided in Natalia about some of this, thinking she was family, someone I could lean on. Big mistake. Instead of offering support, she seemed to see it as an opportunity. It started subtly, little digs about how stressed I looked, how tired I seemed. Then she started asking pointed questions about my sleep, my appetite, my energy levels. At first, I brushed it off as concern, albeit clumsily expressed. Then it escalated. Last week at a family dinner at my parents' house, Natalia cornered me in the kitchen while I was helping Mom with dishes. She lowered her voice conspiratorially and asked, "London, are you sure you're okay? You seem really on edge lately." I told her I was just tired, work had been hectic. She pressed, "It's more than that, isn't it? Are you taking anything to cope?" I laughed, thinking she was joking. "Taking anything? Like what, extra vitamins?" She didn't laugh. Her face was serious, almost grim. "No, London, like drugs. Are you using drugs?" I was floored. "Natalia, what are you talking about? That's insane." She just stared at me, her eyes narrowed. "Is it? Because you've been acting so strangely, so erratic, and with everything going on with Ellis." I cut her off, my voice rising. "There's nothing going on with me, Natalia, except that my sister is accusing me of being a drug addict for no reason." She shrugged, feigning innocence. "I'm just worried about you, London. That's all, with the kids and everything." The kids. That's when I realized what she was doing. We have 2 kids, Emerson, who's 7, and Leonardo, who's 5. They are my world, and Natalia knows that. She knows that in a divorce, custody would be the biggest, most painful battle. And she's trying to create a narrative, a story that would make me look unfit, unstable, a danger to my own children. She's trying to paint me as a drug addict to get leverage in a divorce that hasn't even happened yet. It's disgusting. It's manipulative, and it's terrifying. I told Ellis about it that night, and he was just as shocked and angry as I was. He knows I would never touch drugs, he knows how much I love our kids, but he also knows how vicious Natalia can be when she wants something. We talked late into the night, trying to figure out how to handle this. Do we confront her directly? Do we ignore it and hope it goes away? Do we preemptively tell our family and friends what she's doing to discredit her? We're still not sure. But one thing is clear, Natalia is not just competitive anymore. She's actively trying to sabotage my life, my family, for reasons I can't even begin to fathom. And I'm scared of what she'll do next. Update 1: Things have escalated with Natalia, and honestly, I'm starting to feel like I'm living in some kind of twisted soap opera. The rumors haven't stopped, they've intensified and spread. It's not just family dinners anymore. Now, mutual friends are starting to ask if I'm doing okay. People I haven't spoken to in months are reaching out with vague, concerned messages. It's like Natalia has launched a full-blown smear campaign. And the worst part is, she's being so subtle, so insidious about it. She's not outright saying, London is a drug addict. Instead, she's planting seeds of doubt, whispering insinuations, letting other people draw their own conclusions. It's incredibly effective and incredibly damaging. I confronted her directly last week. I called her and asked her point blank, Natalia, are you telling people I'm a drug addict? She feigned hurt and indignation. London, how could you even think that? I'm just worried about you. Everyone is. Worried about me doing drugs? Because that's what it sounds like you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm just saying you haven't been yourself lately. You're stressed, you're anxious. People are noticing. People are noticing because you're making them notice, Natalia. You're putting these ideas in their heads. She sighed dramatically. Look, if you're not doing anything, then you have nothing to worry about. Right. That infuriated me. That's not the point, Natalia. You're actively trying to damage my reputation, to undermine my life. Why are you doing this? She went silent for a moment, then said in a low voice, Maybe I just want what's best for Emerson and Leo. I was stunned. What's best for them? Having their mother falsely accused of drug addiction, having their family torn apart by your lies? Ellis isn't exactly father of the year right now, London, and you're clearly not coping. Someone needs to think about the kids. And you think that someone is you? You think you're better equipped to raise my children than I am? Maybe, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Maybe I am. That conversation ended with me hanging up on her, shaking with rage and fear. Ellis is furious too. He's been incredibly supportive through all of this, but he's also worried. We're still in therapy, trying to salvage our marriage, but this Natalia situation is making everything so much harder. It's adding another layer of stress and distrust to an already fragile situation. We've decided to be proactive. We've started telling our close friends and family what Natalia is doing, preemptively discrediting her rumors. It's awkward and uncomfortable, but we feel like we have no choice. We need to get ahead of this to protect ourselves and our kids from her malicious campaign. We're also considering legal options. A lawyer friend suggested documenting everything, every conversation, every message, every rumor we hear. It might be useful down the line if Natalia escalates further. Honestly, I don't know what her endgame is. Does she really think she can get custody of my kids? Does she just want to cause chaos and pain? Whatever it is, it's deeply disturbing, and I'm terrified of what she'll do next. This isn't just sibling rivalry anymore. This is something much darker, much more dangerous. And I feel like I'm fighting a ghost, a shadow, because she's operating so subtly, so indirectly. It's exhausting and demoralizing. I just want it to stop. I want my sister back, the one who was just competitive, not destructive. But I don't know if that person ever really existed, and I don't know how much more of this I can take. Update 2: The situation with Natalia has taken a truly bizarre and frankly terrifying turn. It's no longer just rumors and insinuations. Now, she's actively trying to manufacture evidence to support her false claims. It started with anonymous tips. Child Protective Services called me last week, informing me they had received an anonymous report alleging drug use and neglect in our home. They had to investigate, of course. It was humiliating and invasive. They interviewed me, Ellis, and even Emerson and Leo, asking them incredibly inappropriate and leading questions. The kids were understandably confused and upset. Emerson, bless her heart, got defensive and told the social worker, "My mommy doesn't do drugs. My Aunt Natalia is lying." The social worker, while professional, seemed skeptical. They did a home visit, poking around, looking in cupboards, even checking our medicine cabinet. It was mortifying. Of course, they found nothing. We don't have drugs in our house. But the fact that someone, presumably Natalia, would make such a false and damaging report is just beyond comprehension. Then, yesterday, things got even weirder. I received a package in the mail. No return address, just my name and address printed on a plain brown envelope. Inside, there was a small plastic baggie containing a white powdery substance and a handwritten note. The note said, "Just a little something to help you cope, London. Don't worry, no one will know." I immediately called the police. They came and collected the package and confirmed the substance was indeed cocaine. It was clearly a setup. Natalia is trying to frame me. She's escalating her campaign from whispers and rumors to outright criminal activity. It's insane, it's terrifying, and it's all aimed at taking my children away from me. Ellis is livid. He wants to go to the police and press charges against Natalia for harassment and attempted fraud. Our lawyer friend agrees that we have a strong case for harassment and possibly even defamation. She cautioned against pressing charges for the drug framing incident without more concrete evidence directly linking it to Natalia. It's circumstantial, she said, and it could backfire if we can't prove Natalia was behind it. So, for now, we're focusing on getting a restraining order against Natalia. We've compiled all the evidence we have: the anonymous CPS report, the threatening text messages, the package with the drugs, the accounts from friends and family about her spreading rumors. It's a lot, and hopefully it will be enough to get a judge to grant us a restraining order. In the meantime, we're living in a state of constant anxiety and hypervigilance. We've installed security cameras around our house. We're being extra careful about who we talk to and what we say. We're trying to shield the kids from as much of this as possible, but it's impossible to completely hide the tension and fear in our home. Emerson and Leo are picking up on it. They're asking questions. They're scared. And I'm terrified for them. Terrified of what Natalia will do next. Terrified of the damage she's already done. Terrified of losing my children because of her lies and manipulations. This whole situation has brought Ellis and me closer, ironically. We're united against this external threat, supporting each other, fighting for our family, but it's also taking a huge toll on our relationship. The stress is immense. The constant fear and uncertainty are exhausting. We're both running on fumes. I just want this nightmare to end. I want Natalia to be held accountable for her actions. And I want my life back, the life I had before my sister decided to turn against me and try to destroy everything I hold dear. Update 3. Resolution: the restraining order against Natalia was granted. It's a huge relief, a small victory in this ongoing nightmare. The judge reviewed the evidence we presented, including the CPS report, the threatening texts, the drug package, and testimonies from friends and family. He agreed that Natalia's behavior constituted harassment and posed a credible threat to my safety and the safety of my children. The restraining order prohibits Natalia from contacting me, Ellis, or the children in any way, directly or indirectly. It also prohibits her from coming within 100 yards of our home, our workplaces, and the kids' school. It's not a perfect solution, but it's a significant step in protecting ourselves from her. The police are also investigating the drug package incident. They're taking it seriously, especially given the context of the restraining order and Natalia's history of harassment. It's a long shot, but there's a chance they might be able to trace the package back to her. Even if they can't, the restraining order itself has had a noticeable effect. The anonymous calls and messages have stopped. The whispers and rumors seem to have died down. Natalia has been forced to back off, at least for now. The CPS case has been closed. They found no evidence of drug use or neglect, as expected. The social worker apologized for the intrusion and assured us that the report was clearly malicious and unfounded. It's still upsetting that it happened, that my children had to be subjected to that kind of scrutiny, but at least it's over. Ellis and I are still in therapy, both individually and as a couple. This whole ordeal has exposed some deep cracks in our marriage, cracks that were already there, but were exacerbated by the stress and fear of the Natalia situation. We have a lot of work to do to rebuild trust and communication, but we're committed to trying. This experience has also made us realize how strong our bond is, how much we value our family and each other. We've learned to lean on each other, to communicate more openly and honestly, even about difficult things. The kids are slowly recovering. Emerson is still angry and confused about Natalia's behavior, but she's also incredibly resilient and strong. Leo is younger and less aware of the full extent of what happened, but he's definitely sensed the tension and anxiety in the house. We're both making a conscious effort to create a more peaceful and stable environment for them, to reassure them that they are safe and loved. Natalia, as far as I know, is still living her life. She hasn't reached out, hasn't tried to contact us in any way, which is a relief. I don't know what the future holds for our relationship, or lack thereof. Part of me wants to understand why she did this, what drove her to such extreme and destructive behavior. But another part of me just wants to move on, to put this whole chapter behind us and never look back. For now, I'm focusing on healing, on rebuilding my life, on protecting my family. The restraining order is a shield, a barrier against Natalia's malice. But the real healing, the real recovery, is going to take time and effort. We're not out of the woods yet, but we're moving forward, step by step, towards a future where we can feel safe and secure again, a future free from the shadow of Natalia's destructive jealousy and lies. And for now, that's enough.